Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the anime announcement that just came out about Kaiju number 8. We've known for a while now that we'll be getting an anime, and they have released the art for the various character designs. And people have thoughts, and I have thoughts. Now, before I start this video, I just want to start it with a caveat. I do not like change. I really detest change of any sort. Once I've imprinted on one version of a character, it's really hard for me to accept a new one. But that is limited. So when I first saw these images, I did not like them at all. But now that I've had a chance to get used to them, they're kind of growing on me, and that is the general pattern that my taste follows with pretty much everything. The only show that I couldn't do this for was Ruby, but that's neither here nor there. The best way I have seen to describe the images of these characters for the anime, I read on Reddit, I can't remember exactly who said it, but they look like they were left overnight in a rock tumbler, or left in a rock tumbler for 100 years. They're just too smooth. And if you look at them, that really is a good definition. Now, for their suits, it makes sense. Animation is hard under the best of circumstances. And the more physically complicated, the more joints something has, the more difficult it is to animate. Take, for instance, their boots. I've made multiple posts about how, in the manga, Vice Captain Hoshina's boots look like little frog faces. And they have a completely different look in the anime. You can't see the frog faces at all. This primarily seems to be because they've extended the ankle guards on the boots in the anime, but they've changed the shape. Presumably, that is to make the show easier to animate. The entire suit, it has fewer seams, fewer lines. That will make it easier to animate. That will will make it flow more naturally. The fewer joints something has, the easier it is to predict where each part is going to go when you animate it. So, that makes sense. And I'm assuming this is also what's following in the difference with their faces. What the obvious difference is that the jaw lines are far reduced. In the manga, with this clean-cut lines, you have very strongly defined jaws. This doesn't mean that every character has a strong jaw, but what jaw they have, you can clearly see it. And this shows up in Reno especially. In this animated image, his jawline is very smooth. There's not much difference between it's more of a smooth arc from a very rounded chin up to his ear. Whereas, as you can see in his manga art, he has a very defined jaw coming down a significant distance from his ear before angling off to a very defined chin. The character that this affects the least is Vice Captain Hoshina, and he had a slightly rounder face to begin with. But even Kokoru, who had a fairly rounded feminine face, also suffers from this. And again, I think 90% of this is just them simplifying the designs for animation, because that's just something you have to live with. Animated designs are simpler than the manga designs. You can also tell this by looking at there's also some differences in the Kaiju number 8 design. The face mask in the manga, that bony shield over his face, it appears to be smaller and less defined. Doesn't go quite back as far over his skull. The horns are a little bit smaller. The overall effect is a bit smoother. Again, this is probably a simplification for animation, but it's interesting that they've reduced the face mask so much, at least in this one image that we are given here. Otherwise, they're a very good translation from the anime, from the manga, excuse me. And now that I've had a chance to look at them, to really internalize the changes and absorb them, I really can't find anything wrong with them other than that smoothness. In the one image that we were given of Kafka, his entire face is thrown off by an overall uncomfortable expression and an absurdly wide mouth. Had they simply narrowed down that smile a bit, I think the Kafka image wouldn't have been nearly so disturbing. But just look at it. His smile basically cuts his mouth in half, which I don't know if that's a reference to the way his mouth in Kaiju number 8 form cuts his face in half. But if you look at this, this is actually what he looks like. I don't know if this is where they took the inspiration, but if you remember the scene in the application arc when Vice Captain Hoshina is briefing Mina on the applicants and she sees the picture of Kafka's face on his application form, Kafka is really stiff and awkward in his photo ID for his identification form, and that's what this art reminds me of. For some reason, they chose to go with Kafka's face from his ID card, essentially. And that makes him look really awkward and weird, because let's be honest, which of us actually looks good on our ID cards? So, those are my thoughts. What do you think? But tell me what you think, my wonderful viewers. Do you like these designs? Do you see any major difference other than the necessary simplification for animation? Am I missing any major parts? Please leave a like and a comment below telling me what you think. Go check out the links below my video to get yourself a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo Books, and everywhere else. And peace out, my wonderful viewers.